I got another little radio. Not as little as the last one. Turns out I'm getting a little obsessed. But also this one's a little bit more useful, seeing as how it has the FM band. That's pretty neat. I wasn't sure how those dials would turn, or that they would both turn at the same time like that. That's pretty cool. So yeah, since this one has FM, it's a little bit more practically useful, and it is still reasonably small, portable, battery powered, so it ticks those boxes. This antenna pulls all the way out. That was in the listing, but it looks like there's probably just a set screw or something that is missing. Not sure on the age on this one, but pretty sure it's safe to say, you know, mid-70s or so. That's kind of what it looks like, this design aesthetic. A little dirty, but in pretty good shape. Doing this video a little differently. Whoa. Okay then. Okay. So yeah, as predicted, this is just not connected inside. I don't know if that even goes there. I don't think that's an antenna slot. Something kind of similar to what we saw on the last one, where these screws all have paint on them, so they can tell if you take this apart. These resistors are all a little bit older, a little bit different, it looks like. These dials that you can see turning in the front are actually the tuning capacitors. There's mechanical linkage, there's gears down there somewhere. Anyway, I'm going to power this up, I think, and see if it works at all in its present state. Not sure what that other thing is. This is the antenna here. Rather, this was the antenna here. And it's broken. This one does have a schematic, which is very, very nice. That will probably be helpful. So you can hear the speaker come alive, but clearly can't really receive anything. AM or FM with that antenna. So either something's bad in the circuit, or that antenna being as broken as it is a major problem. Nope, there is nothing. So there is something seriously wrong with some part of this thing. I don't know if it's a capacitor that's gone bad between stages, or if there's some other kind of problem with one of the transistors. We'll have to find out. The first thing I'm going to take care of, because it has to be taken care of anyway, is to just change out all the electrolytics and see if that might make a difference. If one of these is being used as an interstage capacitor between the stages, and actually I'm sure if I study the schematic, I'll find that in fact, yes, they are. I'm going to pause this so I don't have as much video to watch later. I'm going to take a picture of this and print it out bigger, and I'll be back. It's out, and there has to be something wrong with one of the interstage capacitors or something coupling signals, or it could be with the IF stage itself. because it didn't work in AM either. The AM antenna is here, and it is intact from the looks of things, and so are its connection. Yeah, it is connected and intact. So we would have got something on AM unless there was a problem with the IF section or something else. The fact that it was making crackling noises suggests that the audio amplifier stage is functional. Yeah, audio amplifier stage is functional. And the kind of current draw that I was seeing, this looks like a paralleled AB amplifier? No. I don't know what this is. I'm going to have to study my amplifier theory. But it seems reasonable to have 50 milliamp draw in the non-active state. That doesn't seem that strange for an old school, traditional style amplifier. A lot of transistors for just one amplifier. They are all PNP. In fact, all of these are PNP. Every transistor on here. So I want to replace all the electrolytics anyway, and some of the coupling between stages, like here, is done with an electrolytic capacitor. So if there's a problem with that capacitor, or a problem with any other capacitors I haven't found yet that are being used for that kind of coupling, like say that one, this has got to be AM, this is FM. This switch here switches it into the IF section. And then there's some demodulation done here. And then it comes down here, there's probably more demodulation, and it goes into the audio amplifier stage. So I'm going to check, well, really all of the electrolytic capacitors, but in particular these 5 microfarad ones that look like they're in between stages. If one of them is open, then that's going to be the problem with it right there. I got one of these out. This was the most accessible one. I thought these might be marked in millifarads because they used to do that, but there's no way. It's not a 100,000 microfarad capacitor. So they've got the correct style, like micro symbol on here, but I think these capacitors, this big M is actually a microfarad. It's actually reading 28 puff, and it can't actually complete its program. This should be showing, well, here. That's what it should show for a capacitor of 100 microfarad. So I've started pulling out the capacitors, and look at this one. This one is labeled 5 microfarad, but it's measuring 10, which is usually a good sign that it's leaking. And look at that. Equivalent series resistance, 85 ohms. The one I replaced it with had a ESR of 1 ohm. So I'm going to keep going. This is actually a really good sign. Nothing I've found has failed short yet, which is good. If it fails short, it can damage components elsewhere. But they've all been filled like that. So that's a good sign. I wasn't going to show you every single individual leaky capacitor, but this one is really, really bad. With this series resistor, we're 1 microamp per millivolt. So that's 100 microamps, 1,000 microamps, almost a milliamp, over a milliamp of leakage. And you can tell when you measure these on some multimeters and some component testers, they're using a less sophisticated method that's just based on charging time, and it'll read as a much higher value capacitor. This one is labeled 30 microfarads, and it read as 78. because of all this leakage. Okay, that's the last of the capacitors replaced there. That one was in very, very poor condition, the one that was there. A lot of the ones that were in the worst shape are the 5 microfarad ones that I thought might be being used as interstage coupling. So there is a really good chance, I think. This looks like a capacitor, but pretty sure it is a transistor, this one as well, because 2 reasons. One, there are 3 legs on it, pretty obvious. But 2, this is over here. These 6 are the audio output stage. And actually, you can see this one is wrapped as well. So yeah, these 6 transistors here are the audio output stage. And for some reason, some of the metal can transistors are just plastic wrapped. This looks like it might be another capacitor down here, unfortunately. That's annoying. Yeah, it's a good thing I took that one out too, because here it is in the leakage rig. Okay, I've got this, I believe, sufficiently reassembled to test. There were a few wires that popped off that I wasn't expecting to have to reconnect. I had to dig back through the videos. Fortunately, I was able to find where they went, I believe. There's a little bit of laparoscopic soldering in there to get the tuning capacitors reattached, but overall, not so bad. Okay, we're ready for the moment of truth here. I'm going to go with 6 volts because that's what the schematic says. I find it kind of strange that it would have 9-volt battery clips that run at 6 volts. Also, I'm not particularly convinced there'd be any problem with running it at 9 volts. But going with 6 volts, 150 milliamp limit. Power switch should be off. And it does appear to be. No current draw. And turn the power on.
So those are legitimate fears, right? Nobody looks at a bank's balance sheet these days and underwrites it because we just all rely on FDIC insurance. Getting more and more.
So there are some dead spots in the volume pot, and that was only testing AM since the FM antenna is just a little piece of wire. At this point I'm going to have to order a replacement FM antenna, but that is working. So all these capacitors had to come out. All of these. They are all, the only name brand I've seen on any of them is this Riken brand, and they were the ones that failed the most horrifically. I guess OES is probably a brand on these. They're just labeled OES, made in Japan. OES. But yeah, they had all failed, and that was the whole problem with this thing. Probably some of these 5 microfarad coupling capacitors, like here and elsewhere, those failing meant that even if these, the bulk capacitors, the stuff that were operating the amplifier, even if those were still working, there wasn't any signal getting to the amplifier to be amplified. So that was all that was wrong with this thing, was just old worn out capacitors. Now that it has new ones in there, it's working fine. The volume knob slash power switch is a little too sketchy. This is full volume and it's either not working at all, or if I poke the switch just right, it starts working again. Barely, like this. So there's something wrong with this potentiometer. I'm going to start by trying to clean it. Means I'm going to have to go get some contact cleaner. But this is receiving FM right now, even with just a little tiny wire antenna. But I managed to get this out, just kind of bending the tuning capacitor leads. Hope that's okay. Clearly, I wonder if just this is the problem here. That wire is probably making a really bad connection. I can try just resoldering that. We've got the switches on either side. This is the actual potentiometer. So I'm going to do a few quick checks of that to see if it's just in really terrible condition. I think this thing is pretty much toasted. You can see there are certain positions. This is a 5K potentiometer. So there are certain positions where you can get a reading that sort of makes sense. This is between one side and the wiper. But most of the travel, it's not good. I can try some contact cleaner. I can go get some. But first I want to just try taking this potentiometer out, putting in another 5K potentiometer, a known good one, and making sure the rest of the circuit is functional. Okay, I've got this hooked up again with the Franken potentiometer neck bolt bypass kind of deal over here. That is on. Oh, I'm in FM. Let me go back to AM.
If you're not already a season ticket member, you can get access to postseason play at Oracle Park. Place a $500 deposit to season ticket plans, and you're guaranteed the right to purchase tickets to also postseason October. Also receive $100 of bonus credit, good for single remainder of this regular season. Learn more at sfgiants.com. Advisory for tomorrow, haze and smoke from the wildfires lingering above the Bay Area and to the northwest too. This comes after. Through today for more, we're going to turn to the KCBS Ring Central Newsline and talk with spokesperson of the Bay Area Air Quality Management.
I would say that's working reasonably well with this new potentiometer. Obviously, it still needs an FM antenna.
Of course, up in the Tahoe Basin, they've been dealing with 500.
But AM is working about as well as I would have expected, and I can control the volume of it now. So, I'm going to get some contact cleaner, spray it in here, see if I can get this potentiometer to come back. Okay, I've got the other camera out, so we can do a kind of a face-on view. The lighting isn't perfect for that, but everything's back together. I did clean it up a little bit. I didn't go too nuts. I didn't want it to look factory fresh. I just wanted, you know, the previous owner gunge off of it. I'm realizing there's now a piece of something stuck down under there. But it all went back together pretty easily. I've just got a piece of wire as an FM antenna for now, and I do still have to glue the tuning knob back together. I just wanted to make sure everything worked.
And then Austin Riley.
I was able to get this potentiometer working again, just a little bit of contact cleaner and working that around, which is good because that's loud.
And it was not very convincing. There's a lot of data that shows you have to first be deficient in biotin for it to have any effect. So when we combined it with magnesium to make a new form of bonded magnesium biotinate, and we tested it first as ordinary biotin, we found that it was over 40 times more soluble, much better absorbed, and even more efficacious in the body. So your blood sugar.
So this tuning mechanism I find really neat, where both of the dials move around. At the same time, it's a bit annoying. You can't just switch back and forth between AM and FM. You would have to retune, unless you get really lucky.
Which covers a full year of free visits, including a PSA test.
But this FM is working just fine.
761 4037.
If I can get the knob turned.
Spotify or Google Play. Be sure to leave a review.
Let's try AM.
Text
Oh,
him asking about the gold miners ETFs.
this is AM. Let's try FM.
California. It is not a fun day on the Bay Bridge. This report is sponsored by Chilton Auto Body. Dealing with a broken down car.
This will be 107.7.
Before the island, somebody ran out of gas. The right lane is still blocked off, and East 80
Think.
is backed up on the middle.
Football on KGO. That punt putting the
Yeah,
Raiders back
AM
at
obviously
their own
works considerably better, seeing as how it has an actual
excited as they came out
antenna.
of the field.
I might just put a coax connector on there. I did get an external,
No Mariota,
like a
no
rabbit ear
Carr for
antenna
the
like you'd
Raiders.
use on your TV.
And off the right side, Regas.
Yeah, this is definitely working. Anyway, I'm going to get that other knob glued back together. I'm going to measure the remains of the original FM antenna and see if I can find one, a similar one, to order. And I'll probably take this back apart enough to try and get that chunk of whatever it is out of there. But I'm going to call this a success.